Good morning, I'm Brianna Motzkus from the Fabric Patch in Ephrata, Washington, and today's class we're going to do is double diamond.
My daughter and I have owned and operated a busy quilt shop in Washington State for over 20 years. We have a retreat center, an active YouTube channel, and a large pattern line featuring our creations. My two sons work on machines. One daughter-in-law is our videographer and the other is a long-arm quilter. We are a family that love each other, we laugh together, and every once in a while we get some work done. We have a crew that are saints for their efforts at keeping us on track. Thanks for joining us on our wild ride.
Double diamond is one of my own patterns. It is one I did, early teens, maybe a tween. It was one that I was just kind of playing with. Mom had shown me how to do foundation piecing. So there is foundation paper piecing, which is similar to like a Judy Niemeyer, but you're stitching on paper, whereas foundation piecing is actually sewing onto a foundation, which is a muslin or a piece of fabric. So I had just been playing and I came up with this one. This is the original. Very cool, very different, but I started with a diamond shape and did some just basic, kind of like crazy quilting almost, because during that same time I was taught how to do a crazy quilt. So, you know, you stitch a whole bunch of things in there, maybe stitch some trim in, do some decorative stitching. So I kind of put both of those together to create this kind of a fun double diamond idea. So that's where we're going to go today. So there is a pattern available. You can get it as a download or as a printed pattern that we ship to you. And it's all about fussy cutting. It's all about that focus piece. Just like the one behind me, it's all about these pretty horses, however you want to see them. So it is something that requires somewhat of a large print that you can really showcase off something. I even put a nice little tush in here. Anyone who's a horse person knows you always get a little, you know, attitude from one of your favorite little ladies. Or on the one on the side here, you can use one that is just all about the sea life. So it just depends on what you're kind of looking for at the end of your project. Larger print is easier to work with, I think. It comes out with a really cool finished look. I'm working on one today that we're going to make, and I'm doing, mine is just textural. So I have minky, I have flannel, I have chenille, and just some regular cotton pieces in here. Just something really fun and flirty and young. So this one also is very scrappy, and I've just chose to use different textures in here. A very scrappy take on something that can be very, you know, focused and very organized. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to talk about two ways how to cut for your focus piece. You can choose to cut the exact fussy cutted diamond shape, or you can use the whole piece like this one for foundation. Behind all of these cute little strips is this piece of fabric. So I'll show you two ways to cut out for your focus piece, and you can decide what works best for you and the fabric that you've chosen. So the way I'm doing my really fun scrappy texture one is I'm creating my diamond. I am using fabric glue, whether you use the Quilter Select fabric glue or the fabric glue stick from June Taylor. It's up to you. The June Taylor glue stick just happened to be in my project pouch. I really do like my Quilter Select, but whatever you use, because I like this to be stuck down so that it stays into place. I could put some pins in there, but I'm very good at poking myself with the pins, so glue seems to be a nice, easy, non-painful way to do it. And then this is just some cotton muslin that I've cut into my pieces. I like to start with a piece that's about 10 by 12. We can always trim that down after we're done making our block, but we can always make it bigger. So if you're not quite sure what you're wanting your end piece to be, make it a little bit bigger. You can always trim it down. How I have it is I have taken a little piece of cardboard. I have cut in my diamond shaped. On your pattern, you do have a template that is this diamond size. It is a 5.5 inch 60-degree diamond. So if you are a competent and comfortable cutter doing different degrees, you can always just cut those off with your ruler, or I like to do a template because if I'm fussy cutting, I can take my friction pen, draw out my diamond shape, and think, oh yeah, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want to see in the middle of my block. This piece of cardboard is also 10 inches by 12 inches. So if I have a lot, maybe I bought 10 yards or something crazy and I still haven't done anything with it and it's too cool to put on the back, or you inherited something that is just super special to you, what you can do, how I did the quilt behind me, is I had put my little template guy onto my piece of fabric, and then I had just cut my 12 inch by 10 inch pieces out of that, drawing my little friction line and knowing that this was my focus piece and everything else beyond my template is just going to be my foundation fabric that I'm going to be piecing onto and to never be seen again. So that's up to you. So there's a very low waist option, or one that is not, I don't want to say wasteful, just it's probably a little faster. There's one less cutting step that you have to do and one less cutting error that could be caused on there. The other thing you can do is use template plastic. This one's really nice. This one's also heat resistant, so if you do some other template projects, this one can withstand the heat of your iron without buckling. But you can always trace your diamond shaped right onto this piece and you have a nice sturdy piece that you can stick. And you can also see through it, which is very handy, so that you know exactly what you're going to see when you cut out. So I'm going to show you real fast in case you need some visuals. I have pulled some bolts of fabric from the shop to show you some options of the fussy cutting technique, what we're doing by what we mean by fussy cut. So this first one is actually a border print from the Elysian collection, but what's really cool about this is these are really, really big, which is really nice. It is pretty busy, but we've got a really big artwork to work with. So again, I'm just going to use my trusted little cardboard template, and you can see if we're going to fussy cut, this is going to be my window. This is what I'm going to see, and all of my cool purples and greens and blues will be stripped from here. So you can see how this works. You can also twist it, but again, it's 10 by 12. So depending on how you want your orientation of your blocks to be, will depend. But look how cool that is. I think them peeking through is like super beautiful. So you could easily use something of just a large border print. And I don't even mind that the orientation is horizontal. It just means you might need a few more blocks. You might be 4 blocks across by 6 blocks down because you've got your block is essentially flipped. And something like this, again, I would probably just cut my whole 10 by 12 piece out of this border print because it doesn't really, like every other butterfly will be cut up. Because like this guy right here, we have cut off part of his wing. So it's either every other one will be essentially wasted. So if instead of throwing that fabric away and cutting a new piece of muslin, why not use that waste in our quilt block we need anyways. So this one's really cool. I really like this one. The Elysian border print comes in I think it comes in 3 different colorways. There's this blue-green one, there's a really pretty purple jewel tone one, and then there's the multi that has the blue, the greens, and the purples all mixed in. So another one to show you. Here is just a traditional floral. This one is Belle Isle. Kind of a patriotic one, but it's almost already in a diamond shape, which is really cool. So this is something you could choose to, purposely cut out and mount to a piece of muslin, or again, you can use the whole piece. But look how pretty that is. You can really just make it all about the floral. So this one I probably would, knowing they're kind of already in that shape we want, I would probably start with my diamond and mount this to a piece of muslin. I think this one, you're going to waste more cutting it into a rectangle than you are cutting out the diamond shape. But beautiful. This one comes in other background colors, the same beautiful floral, but if you're not much for the navy background, I think there's like a white background and a red background. So very pretty. this one I just thought was fun. This is Tula's Flannel Christmas line, Holiday Homies. And I thought this would just be a fun one to do with something very particular. And this one again would be very cool. Again, this one I probably wouldn't cut out my whole 10 by 12. I feel like they're kind of already in that designated shape, but super cool. This particular print has the cool goose, the dog, and the deer in their little Christmas sweaters. And it comes in, I think, I think might come in a blue background also. So also a very fun one to cut up in that fun diamond shape. All right, and lastly, I mean, there's a lot of options. It doesn't have to be all super focused. It could just be a really cool big print that makes you happy, or who you're making for makes it happy. This one is Whispering Pines. This one's pretty busy. It'll be a lot like the horse one behind me, where, you know, we have an eagle peeking through here with the moose. We might chop off a little bit of him, so you have to decide, you know, who's really important. Do you really want to see the horns, or you just want to see the main profile? Same thing with the bear. You're going to get some legs from somebody. So again, with this one, you know, it'll take you a little bit of time to decide what you think is best, either to do the whole 10 by 12 or the diamond cutting. Because no matter what, whether you're cutting diamonds or rectangles, you're going to have a little bit of pieces that aren't going to work for you. And keep in mind, even if you are using foundation where the salvage is coming up, we could still use it as our sewing fabric. You know, we don't usually use salvage in any part of our quilting because it doesn't go away. But if it's going to be behind all of my stitched strips, it's not going to wash funny, deteriorate. It's not going to do any of that. It's just always and forever going to look like salvage. And if it's behind my strip piecing, no one's going to ever know that I have salvage stuck in there. So this one's also really cool. I think it's really neat. And to me, even the really big, oversized wildlife is really cool. So there's some options. That is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about fussy cutting. It's all about what you want to see in that window. Okay, so now that you've made your choices, I think I gave you a lot of options. I think now your wheels are spinning about what's in your sewing studio. So you can now decide your plan of action. Are we cutting diamonds or are we cutting rectangles? So in my case, I think, let's see, the 3 quilts I've made doing double diamond, I have done the rectangle. 10 by 12, this is my window. Whereas this is the first one I've done that I'm actually cutting out my 60-degree diamond shape in here. But it's still just as easy. So I have chosen to use just some basic muslin. I've cut these into 10 by 12 inch pieces, and I have my 10 by 12 inch template I've laid onto my muslin, and I have made sure that I am centered. My diamond piece of minky in this case is centered into my muslin background. The other way you can do that is, of course, take it to the iron, crease your, you know, length. You can take this in half, crease here, fold it in half, crease here, find that center point, and you can easily, because it's a diamond, these points will line up with your horizontal line and these points will line up with your vertical line. So make sure your diamond is centered in that 10 by 12, especially if you really want to keep this block finished as close to 10 by 12 as you can. If you feel like you need some wiggle room in case it doesn't piece out straight, make this a little bit bigger. Again, trimming down is super easy. The quilt behind me, I even did, like, they call this essentially a coping strip, this little black one. But it was an intentional 1.5 inch black strip, and then my really pretty stashing. So if things go a little haywire and these blocks finish a little bit smaller than you were hoping for, or maybe they finish exactly like you want, but now it's going to fit on your bed, and now I have to make either 6 more blocks or make these blocks bigger. This is a really easy way to make those blocks bigger, and then put your sashing on. It's really cool. It really makes it all about this. It's a really appealing look. So once you've decided how to start that, we're ready to go. You can start with as many blocks as you want. to start here, I kind of just do like 3 or 4 at a time, but I'm a quilter that I get bored really fast. So I really want that satisfaction, you know. I might start with 4 of these, get all 4 done. It's like, yes, I feel great. I feel like I've conquered the world, and now I can go fold out laundry or go to sleep knowing that I accomplished something for my day. So I am someone who likes to do, you know, 4 at a time, get it all done. Ooh, look how pretty this is gonna be. And then either jump in at 4 more or keep going. So again, that, you know yourself, so you know how you'd like to do that. And then I also have a little baggie full of strips. So again, these strips, it does not matter. They can be from a scrap bag, they can be from old projects, it doesn't matter. So I've got, this is probably like a 3-inch strip all the way down to a 1-inch strip. It really doesn't matter. I really don't do anything more than 3-inch wide strips because that really reduces the amount of strips you can actually have right here. And I feel the more strips you have, the really more intricate and really more appealing it is to me, to my eye. Yours might be different. You might think, no, bigger, better. It's gonna finish quicker. I don't have very many colors and textures. So it's up to you. But I think for me, and I think even the pattern says, 3 inches is kind of your max size strip. Keep in mind you're also gonna lose your seam allowance, so you really don't want to do anything smaller than a 1/2 inch. For me, I do a 1 inch to 3 inches. So inch, 1.5 inches, 2 inch, 2.5, and 3-inch strips. So those 5 sizes, and any arrangement you want. And I stick it in a bag. So this particular project, I've got some Chenille Textures. You can get these a lot. You can get like vintage bedspreads from thrift stores, yard sales all the time that are Chenille. Those are good things to use. Don't tell Mom I told you that, because she collects those just to love on because it gives her good memories. But you can always put it into something that makes you happy and it's reused. Even it's from Grandma's collection, it was her Chenille pillowcase. Putting it into a quilt that's going to be cherished and used and loved for a great-great-grandbaby is still, I think, really, really special. You can also, though, from quilt stores, you can still purchase Chenille in the window pane, and sometimes in this is a little wavy texture that's really nice. And they usually come in a couple colors, very pastel baby colors, of course. But I've got some Chenille Textures. I've got some flannels. Again, just whatever you want it to look like. So mine is very girly, very pastel. Not my normal hot pink and purple kind of thing, but it's really, really cute. You've got some cotton pieces. You can even throw batik in here. It really doesn't matter. It's all in the end, whether it's all of this. So I've got Minky, which is 100% polyester. Chenille, which is still 100% cotton, but it's, you know, created a little differently. You can also make your own Chenille if that's something you want. If you can't find the color of Chenille you are looking for, you can absolutely make your own Chenille and throw it into this. It just depends on how much time, how much heartache, how much whatever you want to put into this quilt. You know, if it's your first and probably own grandbaby, you're not going to think twice to make this Chenille to make it extra special for that one person. You can put batik in here. Mine is just, it looks like I don't have any batik in mine, but I've got polyester, I've got Chenille, I've got flannel, and I have regular cotton in here. It is all going to wash the same. It's still going to last the same. So even if you expect this baby quilt to be washed every week, because it's going to be on the floor, it's going to be in the car, it might get a little spit up on it, it will withstand all of those washings. So as long as you're getting quality cotton, quality batik, quality Chenille, all of that stuff from your local quilt shop, it will definitely withstand the time it takes to actually love it. So we're going to start sewing. So I have my nice little wad of strips. Again, I have Minky strips, Chenille strips, flannel strips. They're all in here in a nice wrinkly little wad. So here comes the fun part. Now we're going to start sewing. Okay, so I've got my 60-degree diamond glued with my little fabric glue to my muslin, which is going to be my foundation fabric. And then I've got my strips. I've got a Minky, I've got some Chenille, I've got flannel, and again, you can just pull them right out of your bag. It's entirely up to you. Don't get stuck on a pattern. Just sew it down because it won't matter. Don't get stuck, oh, it has to be yellow, pink, yellow. Just make it scrappy. For me, I call this an organized scrappy. And that's how I best do it. It's all the same color story. It's all cute girl pastel, or it's all bright boy primary colors. Whatever that is to you, I create that as my scrappy, my organized scrappy. So I'm just gonna start with this little chenille piece. And again, this is one I probably used before, so I just keep all of my pieces in that bag, because depending on how long they are or how short they are, I mean, we're gonna sew from right here all the way up, so we can get something as small as like a little 2-inch strip right here. So you'll use every bit of what you have. So what we're gonna start with, we're just gonna pick a side of our diamond, we're gonna do right sides together, and we're gonna sew a 1/4 inch seam from this point here all the way down to right here. And then we have our first piece. So what I tend to do is I like to go around my diamond and keep adding to it. If you prefer to do it otherwise, another way, the hard part is if you keep going up, you have to sew all the way across to sew this piece down and then keep going this way. But then when you come this way, all of this little 3-inch piece right here is now waste. Now it's just weird added bulk behind your diamond. So I like to stop here. I'm going to kind of finger press this open. You can go right to your ironing board and press that down. And then I'm going to take my scissors and I'm just going to follow this line right here and cut this. Again, it's not perfectly straight with this, but again, it doesn't matter. I'm going to have a seam allowance here, and this is my straight edge that I'm basing off all of my sewing off of. So then I'm going to take my next strip. I'm just going to use this minky piece. This minky piece, you will notice, doesn't have any of that fabric solving on it. You can absolutely put that on there if you want to. It's entirely your choice. For me, it's a small piece. This piece, it looks like it's a little dirty. So I'm going to put that as this is my wrong side, this is my right side, because I'm not going to clean that right now. And then you can also put some pins in here if you'd like to. You can put that fabric solvy on the minky right here. What that again does is creates it from stop stretching. For me, I have to go this far, so I'm not going to worry about it overstretching or doing something super naughty. So I'm going to sew it without my fabric solvy on. And I'm going to be sewing past onto my white chenille piece. So I'm going to stop about right there. And then I'll have that sewn on there. And then I'm going to take my scissors and again cut along this edge and put this back in my strip pile. And we're going to just keep going around and around. Now, Okay, so I have made it around 1 full time. I'm going to actually take this to my ironing board, just give it a really good press before we get on to our second round. Okay, so I've given it a quick press. You'll notice Minky really doesn't, if you've played with Minky before, it doesn't always follow the same rules. It looks like I haven't even pressed it. So you can always take your fabric glue stick, put some glue on here, and actually, you know, stick it down if you'd like to. Whatever makes it easier. I feel like a new sewer, a new quilter, a first quilt, this is something that's really easy. It's very foolproof. We can always get some sort of a block out of this. So whatever makes it easier for you to manage works for us. So round 2. So again, we can just keep going around with our strips the way we have been. You can also, you may have noticed the quilt behind me, we have all of those wonky bits. So these are my little, what I call wonky bits. So if you want it to be very kind of like a fractured look around your focus piece, I'll show you how to do that next. If you like something very symmetrical, where we're just doing like these 3 pieces, it's just very straight, straight, straight. If you do like the look that we've got this little jig here and a jag here, I'll show you that. Just something really fun to add. This piece, you might be able to see this little piece right here. I used this little last piece of this really fun stone piece. It wasn't big enough. So I was able to add a little bit of a scrap piece here to create that piece to fit. It's really helpful if you do have that foundation fabric, you know, whether it's the muslin or the focus piece behind you, so you know how big your piece has to be. So I was able to just add this little whoop on there because I misgauged how big that piece was. So keep in mind, just use all of those scraps. I know a lot of scraps are really hard to throw away unless they're itty bitty. So if you do have a little scrap basket, this quilt again is perfect for all of those little bits we just don't want to throw away. Okay, so if we want to get crazy and we want to do a wonky piece, it's as simple as this. Now there is probably way better, easier ways to do this, but this is easy and it makes sense in my head. All I literally do is I take my straight piece and I just set it on there all crooked like. And I'm going to use this straight edge on my piece of strip that I have here. That's my straight line. And I'm going to sew my 1/4 inch from just past my little Minky strip here all the way off to the edge of my pink piece here. And it's going to create that wonky bit. So this round, you can do, I'm going to do some wonky pieces on this round. So we have our seam. You can go ahead, take your scissors, and you can cut away this excess. Again, all this is going to do, make sure you don't cut through your foundation piece. Again, the foundation piece is really what keeps our block to size and to scale. Instead of taking it each time to our mat, ooh, nope, I need to go one more round. We're just filling up all this muslin. So you can come through and you can cut away all this extra waste if you want to. I usually keep it. The only reason I would cut it away is if the piece that I am using, I'm going to have to rip this seam out just a little bit here. There we go. If the piece that I am using and I roll it over and it creates this, you know, really big purple streak over this nice pastel purple piece, you're always going to see that shadow that extra piece comes. So you can choose to cut it away or not. It will add some bulkiness to your seam allowance, but in the end of everything, this bulky piece is not going to make or break the cuteness of your quilt. All right, and there we go. This is just, again, just a tiny bit of waste that we have. Fold that open. Here's our little wonky goodness here. We're going to cut off our little excess here, and then we're going to do our next one. So our next one, again, maybe we want to do this one straight. Maybe we're just going to go back and forth and use what we have. If you want to do a straight one, we're going to go right off that straight line from before. And again, these aren't going to be straight, only because we are cutting it off with our scissors, but this cut will be straight because we've used our rotary cutter to cut our 1.5 or 2 inch strips that we're using. We're just going to line that up nice and straight, and we're going to sew that side. Alright, and there we go. There's our next one. Alright, I'm going to keep going around, and we'll come back when I have my second round all sewn up. Okay, round 2 is done. Now we're just going to keep going around and around. I think I probably have at least 2 more rounds to do. Maybe 1 more only over here. But it just keeps going around and around. When you put your next one on here, I'm just going to show you as this gets smaller and smaller. When you put your next one on, again, you can do it straight or wonky. 110% up to you. Again, the wonkier you get, I mean, you can sew that all the way over here. It doesn't matter. Because where our block is going to be pointed is, again, it's all about this. When we trim our blocks, it's all about this diamond. So it does not matter where these strips come across. So just have fun. It does not matter. But when you're sewing on there, keep in mind, it's only going to stop, you can stop stitching right here, just off your muslin piece. And then when you're cutting this, you can cut it right here. So don't feel like you have to come all the way across and then cut it off this yellow piece, if that makes sense. As little waste as possible is the name of the game. So I'm going to keep sewing these around, and then when I have all this sewn together, we'll come back and I will show you how to trim this, square this block up. Okay, so I've done all of my sewing. I went around and around and around. I did some wonky ones, some not so wonky ones. For the most part, it's pretty straight. But you can decide for yourself if you really like the more straight look or if you like the wonky look. And again, you can get as crazy as you want. It's just really fun. I want to show you right here in this little corner. You can see this tiny little piece of muslin still poking through. So it's a really, I really like the idea of the foundation piecing. Again, sewing onto a foundation piece of fabric. In this case, it's just a nice lightweight muslin. It doesn't add any kind of crazy amount of bulkiness to your project whatsoever. It's just really nice to give you an idea of how big your finished block needs to be. So this little guy was ability to tell me to use this tiny little bit of something to cover that corner up. So I gave it a good press. I used my best press. I, put my Mr. Goodness on there. This is what your back looks like. So again, here's my muslin all the way across. Okay, so we're going to trim it up. So some ways that you can do it is just with your muslin piece on the back. Go ahead and cut all the way around using your muslin. If you're confident that the 10 by 12 or whatever size you've chosen to start with is square, just go ahead and trim off this back side. You've already got a perfectly straight line that we've already created, and you can just butt your ruler up right against that and cut that line super straight. So like this one is right here, and you can just cut all that off. You can do that all the way around. If you are uncertain if this diamond has been set in there square, if that's a if that is going to bother you, if you're doing a pillow and it's really important, whatever that is to you, I wouldn't stress very much about it, because again, all of this sewing is just enhancing whatever is in here. Your eye's not automatically going to think, oh, that diamond is crooked, unless it's extremely crooked, and then maybe we should have repositioned before we started sewing. But some of the easiest ways to do it is take your ruler. We know in my instance, we are doing a 10 by 12 inch block. So we're going to put our 5-inch line right down the center of our diamond. Because again, half of 10 is going to be 5. And we are going to cut that off. And then I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to flip it a whole side and do the other side. And all I'm worrying about right now is this 5-inch line going from the point of the top of my diamond all the way through to the bottom. And I'm going to cut. Okay, I want to show you right here real fast. You'll see when I cut that, I cut off a lot, and then right here, there's a raw edge. But this, you'll see, can you see that right there? My 1/4-inch seam allowance will come in probably to right here. So just because there's like a raw edge inside my piece, don't worry about that. If that is less, and that's far less, it's probably 1/8 of an inch, your 1/4 of an inch seam allowance is going to come right through that. It's going to sew right about right there, which means you're not going to have any raw edges right there. So don't worry about that. If you find that you see a lot of that as you're trimming the 4 blocks you've started, just be cautious when you're sewing on those strips. Give yourself a little extra meat before you take your scissors and cut that piece off. All right, now we're going to do the other side. So we know this is going to be 12 inches. So we're going to line our 6-inch line right across from point to point. So here's our 6 and our 6. And if it's lined up perfectly, this line, you can see, is now straight on my ruler. So we have already corrected, if it is crooked, we've got our 6 here on our point with a crest, 6 on our point. And you'll see it's a tiny bit off here. And this is the one I cut straight with my muslin piece here. So keep that in mind. Do it one way or the other way, because this one I'm off about 1/4 of an inch up here and spot on down here. So this block itself, I'll either have to just put in my orphan block pile, or all of my blocks will have to be, 10 by 11.5. You can always make it 11. So you can always just use your half increments on your ruler. It's whatever, again, we're just squaring our block up. So you can get super picky about it, or you can just make it be. Just keep in mind, all of your blocks need to be the same size before we construct it into your quilt. So for me, for the grace of fine math skills I have, I'm just going to go to 5.5. I can remember in my head that I'm making 10 by 11.5-inch blocks. So again, I'm taking half of 11 is 5.5. So we're going to take that 5.5-inch line, point all the way down. It's on my point, which will create this line to be straight. Perfect. And we also, because we have so many here, we still have like 1 inch before our point on our diamond goes off. So it's also very important to keep it as centered as possible so we don't lose any of our really cool points. So again, I'm going to flip this, do my other side since we have renegotiated the size of my block. We're going to go 5.5, 5.5. This line is straight. And we're going to whack that bad boy off. And I now have perfect squared up blocks that measure 10 by 11, which doesn't matter. You can make it 10 by 10. You can make it any size you want. It is entirely up to you how you finish. I like the rectangle look, so you can even accentuate the rectangle. So maybe you have a 10 by 14, so you do have extra wiggle room to trim. And this diamond can still remain the same size. So as you are making blocks, it's really fun. Just remember, square them up to the same size, whatever that means to you. Whether you're going to be truing them up to the foundation piece you've already cut, or you're going to be just truing it up based on the placement of your diamond. Very simple. It's very cute. You can lay them up on your design wall however you want to. They can be, you know, 11 inches this way and 10 inches this way, or any way you want. It really depends on what you have chosen for your center. In my case, my center is just really fun texture pieces, so it won't really matter how I choose to do my finish layout. You can also set them differently. So the one behind me, we've kind of already talked about. We have that really cool coping strip or inner sashing so that we can make this size of our square block a little bit larger. So our quilt gets a little bit larger, put our sashing on. Or with this Sea Life quilt, we have chosen to do no sashing and just then put some really cute borders on. So it really depends how you want your finished look to be. But again, we have squared up our blocks to all the same size, so it's not going to have any problem sewing these end to end and making yourself a really cute quilt. So I hope you try this. It's a really easy way to cut through your stash. Use some really fun focus fabrics that are really hard to cut up. You can definitely center those and showcase those pieces off for a quilt on your bed, on the edge of your couch, on a chair for a special person in your life. So I really hope you try this. I can't wait to see what you guys have chosen, and I'll see you next time.
Thank you for watching our video. We invite you to leave a comment, hit the like button, or better yet, subscribe to our channel so you never miss an episode. You can also visit our Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, or Pinterest pages, or find all of those things and our online store at fabricpatch.net.